Next, we're going to just go ahead and create a ground plane for our scene. So we're just going to zoom out and use the create panel to create a ground plane as so. And then we're just going to zoom back in on our objects and go into the material editor, and we're just going to shift copy this material over and modify it slightly to create a ground plane material, and this will just give our objects something nice to sit on top of. Next, we need to just add a ground plane so that we have something underneath the objects for the lighting to correspond with. So we're just going to zoom out using our mouse wheel to scroll out so that we can see a little bit more of our scene. And we're going to go to the Create tab just like we did for the text, and we're going to stick to geometry this time, and we're just going to click on plane. And we're just going to left click and hold our mouse button down and drag out a plane across our scene like this. You can make it bigger or smaller as you like. I'm just going to go ahead and move this so that it's a bit more centered on my logo. And then I'm just going to select my 4 objects and hold Alt and deselect the plane and press Z on my keyboard to zoom. So that's a very nice keyboard shortcut to remember is that anytime you select an object such as the heart, you can just press Z and it will just zoom right in on that object based on the perspective that you have available or active. So if I zoom down, if I go down like this and I press Z, it zooms in to that object. If I press this one and I hit Z, it zooms to that object, etc. So as I orbit my camera around using the Alt middle mouse button technique, which we talked about earlier, we can just simply select all of our objects and press Z, and it kind of brings them all into the scene. We can still use our middle mouse button to pan around and orbit around a little bit and get a nice view, but now we have a nice ground plane to work with. So again, we scrolled out, we went to the Create tab, we pressed plane, and then we dragged a plane out from left to right. And then we selected our objects and hit Z to zoom in and then reposition slightly. And next we're going to simply create a new material for our ground plane. So once again we'll press M on our keyboard to bring up the material editor. Let's go ahead and just use our middle mouse button to pan over just slightly. And we're going to grab this gray metal that we have here and we're just going to shift copy this over. And we'll just go ahead and name this one ground plane. Now for some fun, what we'll do for this one is we'll just grab this ground plane and we'll make this one glossy. So it'll be a bit more reflective. And we'll go ahead and make this a darker color as well. Maybe that's too dark. We can leave this one a little bit lighter, like that. That should be enough. We can always adjust these materials later if we want. I'll just go ahead and make it a little bit darker for now so that we have a bit more contrast with our materials. So now that I've got that ground plane material created, again in this case I can probably just as easily just leash this over to the ground plane like this by selecting the dot in the middle of the material and dragging it over onto the object that I want to assign it to and letting go, and you can see it changes color. It means it's assigned and we should be ready to go. And once again we can just hit Shift Q real quick to give us a preview render of what's going on. You can see with this glossy finish we're getting a little bit of a sort of mirrored look to our scene, which I don't know, I'm not crazy about that. So let's go ahead and grab this material and let's put this back on Pearl Finish. That'll give us a nicer look overall. We'll still have a little bit of a reflection, but it's not like a mirror, right? So I like that a little bit better. We can always come in and play with this a little bit more, give it a little bit more reflectivity if we want, like so. But it's soft and it's muted, so it's not like a mirror. I like that a little bit better. And when we add lights to this, it'll really start to add some depth and bring some life to it. So again, to wrap up, this was a fairly simple routine here. We just simply zoomed out to create our ground plane, went to the Create tab underneath the Geometry tab, selected Plane, and dragged a plane out to create the plane that we wanted. We selected our individual logo elements and hit Z to zoom in on them, repositioned a little bit, and that's a simple ground plane creation. Then we pressed M again and shift copied over another material, named it ground plane, changed the color, played with the reflectivity a little bit, and now we have a nice surface for our objects to sit on top of.